Hi, I'm Alistair Shipley. Driven by the beliefs that everyone has something special to offer, I created Not So Average, the podcast that proves that you don't need to be in the top 1% to be truly extraordinary. Each episode spotlights everyday people from your community, the very individuals you might pass on the street. These relatable stories reveal that whether you're a jack of all trades or a niche specialist, we all have unique experiences and valuable lessons to share. Imagine if we all took a moment to realize we're all not so average. Let's get after it. Welcome back to another episode of Not So Average. Today's guest is a full court press kind of person, someone who took the discipline of varsity athletics and turned it into a playbook for bold creative entrepreneurship. Cameo Hanlon is a former University of Alberta basketball player who thought she'd end up as an athletic director, but instead, she built 3 businesses across Canada and the United States, including a marketing agency, a tech startup, and a hangover supplement brand that doesn't take itself too seriously. From Sparwood, BC to Scottsdale, Arizona, Cameo's journey is anything but average, and that's exactly why we're here. In this episode, we get into the mindset of a builder, the lessons sports gave her about pressure and pivoting, and why success isn't a single lane. It's something that you define for yourself. This one's for the competitors, the creators, and anyone brave enough to bet on themselves. Let's get after it. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be here.
I'm glad you made it. It sounded like you had quite the wrap up for today. It seems like you're on your way out of Canada.
I am. Yep, it was my last day in Edmonton for a while. Moved out of the apartment, gave the keys back, spoke at the U of A, and then hit the road. So,
jeez, and then gave out the key to the city or what?
Something like that, yeah.
That's
Tossed that on
amazing.
the way out, and then here we are. So, yeah, it worked. I thought, you know what? Why not throw one more thing in today?
I appreciate it. So, hitting right off the bat, you've built multiple businesses and carved your own lane, but let's rewind. What was life like in Sparwood, BC?
Sparwood, British Columbia. I'm glad you asked. I don't talk or get to talk about Sparwood very much.
It's home of the world's biggest dump truck up until one point.
Allegedly. I don't think the dump truck is actually that big.
Not anymore.
I've never taken that claim very seriously. But it's a really tiny town, less than 5,000 people, and the dominant industry is coal mining. And it really accounts for, I'd say, 95% of the population's jobs. And then anything outside of that is just supporting teachers, post office, etc. Okay. So it's beautiful. And I'm very fortunate. Like, my parents have an acreage out there. We have horses. So I had a wicked childhood. But the town itself, super, super small. I'd say the majority of people, or the vast majority that grow up there do proceed to live there and spend their lives there. And yeah, so it was, I'm grateful for the childhood I had there, but I did definitely get to a point where I had to move along. I actually finished off my high school in Lethbridge, Alberta.
Lethbridge, Alberta, my hometown.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know. What's west side, south side?
Oh,
north
I was
side?
definitely on the west side.
Nice. Yep.
Just right up from Whoop Up.
No, nice.
Yeah.
Which high school did you go to?
Born there,
okay.
Not raised there.
Gotcha.
Yes, yeah.
It's a great city.
So is the hometown still cheering for you and all your successes?
You know what? Yes and no. I think it was interesting growing up in a small town. Like, my parents honestly, it's weird. So small town's interesting in the sense that it was a little tough to go against the grain there. Okay. Like, I remember even when I loved basketball and was very passionate about it, and, passionate to a fault at that age. I'd cry when I lost and the whole shebang, but that didn't sit well necessarily with other students and peers, right? Because it's
too passionate.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the general mentality wasn't necessarily to strive to be different, but rather to kind of remain in the group. So I won't lie about it. Like, Sparwood was tough for me.
Okay.
It was a tough experience, but now looking back, I love spending time there. It's like a place to recharge, and I'm sure they're proud of me, and certainly like the circle I still interact with is. So yeah, but Sparwood was an interesting environment that I think it was essential. It was an essential part of my forming me, but it wasn't the greatest place to be as someone who wanted to do more.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair. I can understand that.
Yeah.
So what first drew you to sports and basketball in particular?
The funny story with basketball is that I didn't want to play, but my mom was the coach of my grade. I was in grade 5, and she was the coach, and she's like, well, Cameo, if I'm going to be spending all my evenings at the gym. You need to be on the team.
Ultimate peer pressure.
Right. I was like, all right, fine. So I went and the first few months, it's a short season, but I didn't like it at all. And I wasn't very good. And then I seriously remember this like it was yesterday, scoring my first basket in the last game of the year. And from that moment, I was just hooked. I was like, this is for me. Like, I'm going to basically devote the next 15 years of my life to this. And from there on out, I was just obsessed with it. Like, to the point where, I'd ball his life on painted on my wall. And my parents paved we lived on a farm, but they paved our entire driveway and put like a permanent hoop right in the ground.
Oh, yes.
No one parked down there because it was just for me to shoot hoops on. So yeah, I fell in, it was a bit of again, stumbled into it, was kind of not forced, but encouraged into it. And then boom, fell in love. And then I also played played volleyball and then ran track, and I loved those too. Mm-hmm. But basketball was always the one for me. I just liked how dynamic it was.
Okay.
There's 1,000 different ways to score. Every possession was different, like the variety.
That's amazing. Yeah. Track and field was something that I did in high school. And I might have been partially good at it. I don't even want to say. Like, I was like a natural runner, but there was something just consistent about the same thing over and over again. The outcome was either you did good, you didn't do good. Like, there's not much variance in the sport. So
yes, exactly. And that's what I found about track. Loved it, and loved just the raw athleticism of it. But I found bored's not the right word, but it started to get a little repetitive. And I really liked the team element of basketball too. Just from even a social standpoint, and then just that teamwork kind of portion of getting things done. So that's what ultimately pulled me over to the basketball path, and didn't really look back.
You chose the University of Alberta and played varsity ball there. What pulled you to Edmonton?
So I had wanted to play for the Pandas. From the time I realized I wanted to play post-secondary until then, because they had such a good program, and then they had really good academics, and I really, really cared about those. So I did have a tough time. I also wanted to go to the University of Lethbridge because, I'm very comfortable there. I'd played there the last 2 years, but ultimately I decided to go up to Edmonton, and I'm really glad I did. I had such a wicked experience.
Yep.
To be completely honest, my basketball career itself I was injured pretty much the entire time. My basketball career was completely, it was a shadow of probably what it was supposed to be, and completely unmemorable from a stats perspective. But that, honestly, looking back, I think stats, really, it's not, even it's so funny, at the time, when I was, out with injuries the whole time, I just remember thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to have this asterisk on my name that I didn't play much and I didn't score much. But once you're out of the varsity world, no one even asks you if you were good, much less what your points per game was, or you know what I mean?
You played university ball.
Exactly.
Oh, amazing.
Right? So it was I wish I recognized that, or I wish young athletes do that, that it's more the fact that you were playing at that level and the experience, of course, strive for greatness always, but it's less of a factor in your adult life that you think it's going to be. Yeah.
Do you think that, so obviously schooling would have been different, but do you think the sheer fact of you going to a destination school versus doing it at home played a huge part in kind of your adult development?
Totally. 100%. Always to be forced to live alone and grow up more quickly than you would have on your own or living with your parents. So that was a big element of it. And I think one of the biggest factors that dictated the course that my degree in basketball went was these injuries, actually. And I say this and I mean it, I wouldn't have it any other way, because I was so basketball focused. Like I kind of was saying earlier, the whole ball is life. Yes, I cared about my academics, but not nearly as much as basketball. And the only thing that forced that shift, and for me to start rounding myself out and caring about community involvement and academics and work experience, was the inability to play basketball. So I'd say
was it out of fear that you wouldn't be able to do anything else, or what was the reasoning for the injuries impacting your thought process?
Essentially, it was just the thing, which was playing actual basketball that I'd been dedicating all this energy and passion towards for so long, wasn't available to me. Through, even if it was for shorter periods or one season at a time. So it's figuring out, okay, where can I channel this energy? Because I was a passionate person, or I am a passionate person, and figuring out ways to still apply myself and find ways to be competitive and all of those things outside of basketball. So that's sort of what it ended up, the catalyst for diversifying, really.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It was neat.
So it seems like you've always been pretty wired for competition.
Yeah.
How did sports shape your mindset around pressure, preparation, and performance?
Good question. I think ever since I can remember, like when I was really playing basketball, pressure was something that was it was attracting. I wanted pressure situations because you wanted to be able to perform in them and versus, wanting to shy away. So I think that's just something that when you're in a competitive environment like that every single day and you want to win and you want to come through for your teammates, that it's something you lean into versus shy away from, or at least some athletes do. So yeah, I just, from a very young age, it just felt like, okay, that's what we need to do here to take care of business, and therefore I'm going to take it head on and do everything in my power to be able to perform in those scenarios. And I was also kind of the person that, like, I wanted to take the winning shot. Like, I wanted it to be me. And I was very, honored to be in that position and just stoked to anytime I had the opportunity to do that. So it was just something
that shows a lot in terms of the team's ability to trust in you to bring it home. And that opportunity doesn't get to go to everybody, even if they know that you're the point person. You often see kind of that crabs in the bucket scenario where people want to drag you down. So they see that you're open, even if you're the top scorer. If they don't like you, they're not going to give you the damn ball. So that speaks a lot about your character. So good for you. But you. The reason why I asked about that question is, so when I worked down in San Francisco, I was kind of introduced to just a difference in how people looked at the hiring job pool. And it was remarkable how often people would see an athlete, university athlete, like scholarship, all that stuff, and bring them in regardless of grades.
Yeah.
Because there was something about the grits, the grinds. They would handle pressure better in the hiring manager's view. So that's interesting. I'm glad that you shared all that stuff. Yeah,
I totally agree, though. There's certainly the things you develop as an athlete, especially at the varsity level in college, is, oh my goodness, it's a laundry list. I think it's and I agree, like, even when I hire and recruit anyone I know has played varsity sports, I certainly lean towards, because you just know.
Yeah.
Even your ability to stick with something and
dedication.
Exactly. Truly dedicate yourself to something without receiving reward.
That delayed gratification.
Yes, you get very, very good at in the delayed gratification process, and comfortable with putting in very long periods of very hard work without really any reward. Yeah. Until you do. So
yeah, especially at a young age too, you're really not getting paid on it either. So
no, you're probably not even good for a very long time. Like, there's all sorts of feedback loops there.
So was there ever a moment on or off the court where you realized you weren't just going to play, you were actually going to build something?
In the context of basketball, or?
So it was either like on or off the court. Like, when did you come to realize that you weren't maybe necessarily going to play basketball, but you were actually going to build, say, a business?
Oh, yeah. A good question. When I kind of to what I was saying previously, when I was dealing with those injuries head on and I realized that the injuries were going to be a little bit longer lasting than I thought, that's when I'd kind of gotten over that initial woe is me, and it's a tough transition when you have sport kind of taken away from you. Once I'd come out of that and I started to dip my toe in, some things in marketing, at the time, social media was really on the rise as something businesses recognized that they needed all of a sudden, and websites and things like that. So I kind of started to dip my toe in freelancing and doing projects like that. I realized, hold on, this is scratching that same itch that sports does, in the sense of bettering yourself and, pleasing clients and being able to grow something. Metrics, exactly. Very tangible.
In sports, so I've had a few athletes on here, one being an Olympian, and she basically talked about her reintegration into the working force post-Olympics. And she commented about her day-to-day was measured down to this, like, everything.
Yeah.
And so going into the workforce, she was interested in businesses that tried to measure everything. And one of the points that was really frustrating with her current job was it didn't have metrics for everything.
Right.
So she had to build that out. But, like, from my personal experience working with revenue generation and stuff like that, you get to see these feedbacks, these A/B tests, when this leads to this outcome is X. Like, and that's The A-types cling to that stuff.
Oh, 100%. It's like, oh, if you mean I pull lever A and I get result B? Like that's, you know.
Pull the lever.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty motivating stuff.
It's amazing. So what's one skill from your time as an athlete that directly shaped how you show up as a business owner today?
I would say kind of to that piece I had commented on, just that being comfortable putting in a great deal of effort over a great period of time and not necessarily seeing results or maybe the results that you're immediately hoping for, and just being comfortable with the long game and that process. I think that especially in this day and age, it's something that we're starting to struggle with because there is a lot of instant feedback loops and instant gratification. So I feel very fortunate that, this was engraved in my brain and my work ethic and thought process from a young age to be comfortable with that and knowing that and not getting discouraged when everything I want to happen and these goals don't happen immediately. So that's been one of the big things, because as any business owner knows, like you gotta, like it is quite a process and you have to.
You gotta eat shit.
I was gonna say, you gotta eat a lot of shit, as they say, and and you have to. Yeah, I think that has been one of the largest translations that's equipped me to just handle that better.
Your original dream was to be an athletics director.
Yes, it was.
What shifted, and when did entrepreneurship become the new game plan?
So my auntie was an athletic director, and I looked up to her. I still do. I just thought she was the most, powerful, accomplished businesswoman ever, and I thought that is a career path for me. I want to do exactly what she does, and I had thought that from a very young age, and I really was crafting my life to support that, to the point where, thankfully, when I got to university, I was actually going to take I can't remember the name of it, but it was like basically a Bachelor of Recreation and Tourism Administration.
Okay.
So I felt that was more athletic based. And then I can't remember who spoke this in my life, but they were like, hey, you should consider business because it's a little more open-ended should you maybe not want to pursue being an athletic director. And I'm thinking, I will never not want to be an athletic director. But thankfully, took that advice, went into business school. While I was going through school, of course, I was playing basketball, but I also was badgering the athletics department to give if they had any summer jobs and if they'd ever consider, because, I want to be an athletic director. Is there any way I can get involved with the organization? And
the University of Alberta is like hugely reputable. If you have that on your resume,
totally,
you got a leg up.
100%. And just to like be involved in that environment, validate if I actually liked it. I was 99% sure I did. But I ended up getting it worked out well. I basically walked in the office and the head athletic director at the time said, hey, actually, I have a research project that I've been wanting done for a really long time. The summer would be a perfect time for him to do it. Do you want to head it? And I was 20, and I said, absolutely, sign me up. So they gave me a summer job. And it was so neat. I forget that I did this, but it was basically, I was running a series of focus groups and writing a big report on the student athlete experience and ways in which, it could be improved upon and the resources that they felt were lacking to inform donor asks in the future. So it was super interesting, especially to someone who was a student athlete and was, the cause was very near and dear to my heart. So anyways, though, the point of the story is I started working really closely in the athletics department. And then they offered me a job when I graduated, which I was super stoked about. It was a marketing coordinator position. It had a lot of me trying to marry the student experience at U of A and the varsity athletics experience and kind of intertwine the two. So if I'm a student at U of A, what do I do on Fridays? I go to a Bears hockey game, or I go to a Pandas soccer game, whatever it might be, right?
You're naturally going to be there anyway.
Yeah, right. No, I'm going to be there. I was hoping everyone else would. So I started doing that job. But in that time, in all of this time, so through these summer jobs and then my first formal year there as a full-time staff, I started to realize, wait a minute, I don't think this is the life for me, because it's a lot of evenings and weekends, and it is a lot of, our athletics department was certainly, you're fighting an institute, or not fighting, but you're in an institution and it can be very challenging to move the needle sometimes. And You're
competing for the dollar, like where does the money get placed?
Exactly, 100%. And athletics at a very academic school wasn't always the front runner for those conversations. So I just started to realize just a large range of things, whether it was earning potential, actual tasks, lifestyle. I'm like, you know what? This is not actually what I think I want to be doing, which was a real tough realization because, like I said, I'd geared much of my adult life towards accomplishing that. But in realizing that, it was also an exciting time because I recognized I do want to build something of my own. And I want to, really feel like I'm applying myself. I want more flexibility in terms of whether travel and earning potential, et cetera. And at the time I said, I want to be able to golf more because I just picked up golf post basketball. So, knowing I wanted these things, I decided, okay, well, really the only way I see it's feasible to accomplish these or get these in my life is by starting something of my own. And at the like I said, I'd been doing quite a bit of freelancing throughout this time, in addition to my job with organizations, because there was quite a digital wave at the time. There still is. And I recognized, okay, there's also a really big opportunity right now for me to just start providing marketing services full time. So that is, those kind of two events, both sides of the coin, is what brought me to form Best Marketing Co.
Okay. Now this all makes sense because you, in one of your articles that you shared with me with the university, said that you were looking for lifestyle freedom and learning were kind of your big drivers. So marketing, what is marketing to you? Because to people that aren't in marketing, they just think it's like, oh, it's SEO.
Yeah.
Or it's just like the golden arches, like the whole thought process behind that. What is marketing to you?
Oh man, that is
so vast.
It is so vast, and that is a big question. But I think in its essence, marketing to me is having the ability to position your offering, whether that's your product or your service, as the perfect solution for your audience. And I think that spans so many different applications. And one of my favorite things about marketing is that it spans every single industry, period, right? If you can pull the marketing lever and you can do a good job of it, well, you have the ability to not only create, but grow really great businesses. And that's what drew me to marketing when I was younger, is I remember thinking, wait a minute, you mean that marketing can enable me to throw really great events or, help people find a really great product, et cetera. And that kind of ability to dictate human behavior a little bit was just really fascinating to me.
So you've launched across the different business models, like you have service, product, and tech. What lights you up about building things from scratch?
Oh, I love being just so deeply involved in the process.
Do you like the multiple hats? The wearing of multiple hats?
I do. Yeah,
okay.
I do like that. I like it. I like the complexity that comes with it, and the fact that when you start so small, because some of these I started completely just by myself, that you have a really full holistic understanding of everything going on and how everything's interacting, and then you start changing with different things. I really do feel business is a game.
Okay.
And that's what is so fun about it, right? Because you're changing different variables and seeing if it works or if it doesn't. And I just think that's the neatest thing ever.
Yeah. You're in Div 3 and now you're about to play up. You're about to go to Div 2.
Yeah.
And then the next thing, it's like, what do we need to do? Well, we got to start adding more to our practice. We got to start practicing more frequently. We got to put more effort in. And then we want to take it to Div 1. Yeah. I can see that... the sports brain working really well in business.
100%.
Sure.
100%.
Let's talk about Best Marketing Co. How did it start and what kind of work makes you feel most in your element? So we said like marketing is obviously very vast. So for you, is it the design? Is it the SEO? Is it the...
Good question. So when I started Best Marketing Co., it was just me, and I was doing a lot of graphic design, social media management, websites, and it was confined to that. And I liked it. I was never under the impression that was going to be what I was doing long term.
Okay.
Like I liked marketing, but the heavy computer work and me spending a ton of time on Photoshop, for example, is something I knew. I'm like, I will phase out of this.
Yeah.
But it's very valuable to be learning and doing.
Where are you at with that?
Phasing out. I know my way around Adobe. Let's put it that way, which is super fun. Yeah. But so that's how it started, and then I started making some hires, and really, long story short, over the years, started recognizing for us as an organization that the most suitable clients, the clients that were lasting the longest, that were the most profitable or financially effective, and that were like just the happiest with our services and the arrangements, were these clients that lied in, I call them the unsexy industries. So industrial clients, oil and gas, agriculture, resource mining, etc.
I saw some of that on your design portfolios.
Yeah.
I was like, geez, you managed, and I will say this, you managed to make some very unsexy things look like really cool. Like I had to turn my head at like your design, your branding guide. I was like, the oil and gas one, I think began with an A. We won't say which company, but I was like, wow, okay. Like you're good. You're good. So
I appreciate that, because I do kind of joke sometimes that, well, I guess to back up, I started realizing that this is what was going to actually make a scalable company, was servicing these organizations. And the reason it was so fitting too is because if you think about these organizations, they do have a lot of marketing and communications needs, let's call it, right? You know, they have a ton of trade shows and they need a lot of email marketing, ton of design, whatever. But sometimes they don't have quite enough to have an in-house staff, or when they do, they often, at the price point and the subject matter, they get low quality talent and it turns over really fast. So they're hiring for this sole marketing manager position 3 times a year, sometimes more. So that's why it's a really good fit when we come in and we say, hey, we can act as your in-house team. We can provide absolutely everything they would. So, you know, everything from website design, graphic design, we'll design your apparel, we'll order your business cards. Like we really will behave as in-house as we possibly can. But with that, you know, you're paying the same amount that you would pay their salary, more or less, and the consistency is there. We are not, we don't turn over, barring the end of an agreement. And on top of that, we just are able to provide really high quality because we have experts in-house. You know, we have our web expert, our design expert, whereas, you know,
so they get a team versus one person.
Exactly. And we don't do necessarily agency pricing. Like our pricing model really does reflect what they would have paid them in an annual salary. So it's just it ends up being a good option. There's a lot of reluctancy sometimes. Initially, they're like, we don't like working with agencies. We like having someone down the hallway. But typically, we're able to work through that. And our client lifespan is extremely long. It's at the point where I couldn't even give you the number because we're not old enough to even know. They don't turn over very much. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So that's been the journey of Best Marketing Co., where it started, where it led us, and then where we've ultimately flipped all of our branding, all of our internal operations and systems towards servicing this very specific ICP.
Oh, cool. So something that I haven't asked anybody about before, but there's always this moment where you make the conscious effort to hire your first person. And there's putting belief in yourself. And then there's convincing somebody else to put belief in you. And then there's like, once you sign them up or you bring them in, it's like, holy fuck, I'm now accountable for somebody else.
Yeah.
Tell the story about your first hire. How did that feel?
You kind of nailed it with the realization you laid out. But yeah, it got to a point after about a year where I came to the conclusion where this clip I'm going at is not sustainable. Not to mention, I do want to grow. But it was hard because when you've just been you not only are you disorganized, honestly, like your projects, because it's just you're communicating with, but you're hanging on really tight to how everything is and how everything should be. And you also have no documentation outlining how you want it to be. So when you bring your first person on, it can be a little clunky. But those things led me to make my first hire. Thankfully, it was someone I had worked with in another role in the past.
Okay.
So we knew that
similar characteristics or complementary characteristics?
Complementary.
Okay.
Yeah, much more. She was much more tech savvy, and at that point too, I knew I needed, because of the work we were doing at that time. I don't want to say it was rudimentary, but it was, in the scheme of marketing, it was more basic, right? It's not like we were building these huge funnels. Like we were doing a lot of social media management. So I chose someone that, although skilled, they didn't have as much background in marketing and communications, but what they were was extremely dedicated, extremely trustworthy, and had all of those characteristic traits that I'm like, they can learn marketing very quickly, in fact, but I know that I can depend on them. Amazing. So that was kind of the rationale there. But then, once they brought on, and I did have to convince them and put some things in writing. I'm like, hey, this is a good idea. I promise I will take care of you. But then that realization, oh my gosh, I'm now responsible for someone else's livelihood.
Yeah.
And this is no longer just me and my life, it's someone else's. It certainly ups the ante and the pressure that's put on you, without a doubt.
Did you feel that excitement that got you out of bed? Because now it's like, when you're employed by just yourself, it's probably a little easier to just be like, put a delay on a deadline or postpone something. But when you know that this now has an impact on somebody else. At least from me managing other people, I've realized like that Tuesday that I might have wanted to start at 10 a.m., I got to get to the office for 7. And I'm so grateful that I did get to the office for 7 because of XYZ things. Did you feel that at all?
It certainly, yeah, it raises the standard. I think the biggest thing I felt in terms of the shift was it legitimizing the operation, because now versus just a freelancer.
There's 2 business cards now.
Yeah, right. We have group emails. So it was that feeling. And then with that feeling coming, okay, wait a minute. Now, there are standards and there is the need for documentation, and not everything lives in my brain. And I found that process to be really neat and really difficult.
That helps you scale when you can actually take it out.
Exactly.
And put it down.
Exactly. And 1 to 2 was one element of that, but I actually found the biggest example of that, and actually the biggest workload and transformation, was 2 to 3. Because 2 to 3, 1 to 2, we were still kind of acting like 2 freelancers in a lot of scenarios. You're just talking back and forth. But once you add the third in, then you're like, okay, we actually do need to resemble an organization here, and there needs to be workflows and databases and how everything, projects move through. And that was quite the process. But the girl we brought on was, oh my gosh, unbelievable, and set everything up for us so well. And that was just so neat, like just building something from scratch and then getting to that point where you felt like you were kind of going pro in a way.
Yeah.
And
there's a sense of pride that comes for it for sure.
Totally.
You're like standing there all giddy because somebody else built something and you're like, this is awesome.
Right?
Look at us, band of sisters.
Yeah, 100%. Totally. I was actually having a moment 2 days ago where I was reaching out to a prospective client, putting together a package of some of our resources, and I was just reading our one pager and looking at the site and looking at a couple other things that the team had put together, and I was like, man, it was one of those rare moments as an entrepreneur where you kind of zoom out and you go, wow, I'm really proud of this, and this looks like we've come a really long way from the Bush League operation from 3 years ago. So
it was a little skip in my step.
Yeah, it was a neat moment.
Pip. I like that. So then tell me about the talent effect. I read it as this is kind of your tech venture.
Yeah.
So how is it helping brands do influencer marketing differently?
So that's an interesting kind of part of my entrepreneurial journey, if you will. So after I was working in marketing for a couple of years, creator marketing is really on the rise. And when clients of mine wanted to pursue it, or different organizations I saw, it still is, to be honest, but a very convoluted process. And it was often just actually these organizations, especially small to medium ones, just weren't able to pursue it with the resources they had.
Okay.
And I was like, man, this process is no good. And there's, a lot of platforms that are coming out and a lot of really great ones, but I still felt there was quite a gap in the marketplace for small to medium sized brands and there's gifted collaborations. So that's when I started working on the talent effect. And kind of to fast forward from that, I worked on it for about just under a year and a half. I did 2 accelerators with it, and I was really fired up about it, but I was really out of my element in terms of tech. So then I kind of flopped it to a little bit more of, okay, developing a system that once I determine the system, then adding in that tech element for the scalability. But kind of funny story, not to skip ahead to another business, but I developed the system and I had a girl working on it with me who was awesome, and we were testing with a bunch of brands and I was doing it basically full time in addition to Best Marketing Co. But it was more of like a passion thing at this point. But then I got to a point where I go, okay, I want to try this system or test the system at scale. And I think there's 2 ways I can test it at the scale I want uninhibited. One, someone I know is launching a brand and basically gives me the reins to do this big, large-scale influencer marketing test, or I do my own brand. And then that's actually more or less what led me and my co-founders to do Bender Extender.
Oh yeah, let's get there.
Yeah, but what I will say about the talent effect is there came a point to me where, for me, that I realized I cannot do everything. And I've tabled the talent effect for the time being. I use the systems with my clients. I shouldn't say tabled it. I use that system with my clients for Best Marketing Co. When they do need creative marketing, and I certainly use it for Bender Extender, but I stopped actively using it as a service to other businesses because I do think it's something I'm going to revisit down the road. But where I was at, the other 2 were, they were making me tick a little bit more, and when it came to hours in the day, they were the priority. So that one, that one article says it's my 3rd business. I don't really count it. It's more of like a
passion project.
Think tank. Yeah, a passion project, exactly. Yeah. That I do think pick up again one day, but it's not like an active service right now.
And then there was Bender Extender.
Yes.
So a name you used in university that's now a real product. How did the idea go from joke to shelf?
Oh man, so when I was in university, I would mix Pink Whitney and Pedialyte, and I would call it the Bender Extender. And I have tons of Snapchats of me actually holding both of my hand, being like, yeah, I call this one right here the Bender Extender. And I'd always said it as a joke. I thought it was hilarious. And then about this time last summer, I guess a month earlier, I was in a group chat with a few of my really good friends, and we were talking about a boating trip and actually the talent effect. I forgot about this part. I was working with an electrolyte company.
Okay.
And they were going on a boating trip. And I said, hey guys, can you shoot some content for me? I'm going to send you these electrolytes. Maybe make some jokes about mixing up some Bender Extender for the team and whatever. And what I was referring to is, these electrolytes and some vodka or whatever they had on hand. And thankfully, one of my friends responds and goes, Cam, is Bender Extender a thing? And I said, I don't think so. Let me check. And a couple Google searches, and it was not indeed a thing. And she goes, we should maybe
do it.
We should maybe make it a thing. And we have the screenshots of that group chat. And then we just thought, okay, let's do this. So we decided to pursue it. How it started, though, was as an electrolyte. We were going to do stick packs.
Okay.
But we realized really quickly in that process that stick packs are not only very expensive to produce at a low quantity, but it's a really saturated market. Mm-hmm. And we were going to bootstrap. There was very little, it would have been very difficult for us to differentiate with the resources we had.
You're competing on flavors, you're competing on just like, how many drinks can you hold in your hand at one time?
Yeah. I mean,
well, on a
depends
night out.
on the weekend.
But I had to let into that one. Okay.
But no, I totally agree with you. And we just realized that, okay, that is an area I'd like to go eventually. But what is a marketplace that is less saturated and actually had a much cheaper production point? Hangover pills and supplements. So we pivoted to that and started pursuing that. And this was a really fun time because I did not do the formulation, thank goodness, because I don't have any background in that. But my co-founders were doing that. And how we would test it is we would buy all these vitamins and we would ground them all up and we'd make these different formulations, and then we would go out drinking. I called it uncontrolled product testing. And we would see what worked and what didn't. And we did that for a couple months, and some worked great, some did nothing. Some made you, pee neon green.
I'm glad you brought it up, because I was just like, which girl in the group chat came out like, oh my God, I came out of the bathroom and it was green.
It was green.
And that's the B12.
That's the B12. That's exactly what happened. We had, I'd gone into the store, we'd ran out of B1 and B6 is what we use now. I'm like, all there was left was a B12 complex. And I'm like, this should do just fine. And we all peed neon Mountain Dew for the whole batch. And it was hilarious. We said, okay, that one's out.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So it's obviously gone through iterations. It's now been tested. Mm-hmm. Okay. Walk us through that process. How fun was that?
It was very fun. I had come from doing only services my entire business life to now having something that not only is tangible and in my hand, but something that is loads of fun to talk about and promote. Like, are you kidding me? I get to
That's
go
how I
out.
found you, by the way.
It was really?
Yeah. So it was Stampede, the greatest outdoor show on earth.
Amen.
There was, I forgot what the event was, but I think it was a singles meetup, was doing some advertising, and I don't know if it was a friend of yours, but they were talking about walk us through the Bender Extender.
Oh yeah.
And then I went through and I was like, what is the Bender Extender? And at this point I've been 6 months sober. I decided to do a 1-year challenge of not drinking.
That's awesome.
And then I got into your marketing, and then it was probably a little while after when I reached out to you and said like, hey, like you should be really proud of your marketing. Meanwhile, you and I had this discussion literally like 30 minutes ago. I was thinking of Body Break the entire time when I saw the colors, like just like the fade in with 90s colors, teal, everything. And it's the social media and the actual like craze people were bragging about it. So
that I'm so happy to hear that. And the girl in the video there, I have no idea who that was. So that was a little milestone for us. I'm like, a complete random.
Actually.
Yeah, I did not know who that was. And was singing our praises. So I'm glad that's how.
How did she find your product? Just online?
You know what? I checked through our order history. She hadn't even ordered it. It must have been one of her friends had ordered a pack and was handing it out.
Saved her life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now I actually reached out to her and sent her a pack after that. I was like, thank you so much for
That's awesome.
shouting us out. So yeah, but the actual process of bringing it from an idea to an actual product in hand was so interesting. I'd never...
What's the regulations on this stuff?
In the States, very, very minimal.
Okay.
In fact, it really changed the way that I think about consumables
products.
because, even your protein powders and your greens and whatever other things, pretty much anyone can begin producing them within, of course, legal ingredients. But there's not a lot of regulation in the States, at least. There's much more in Canada.
Okay.
Which we're dealing with right now.
There's legal ingredients, but who's regulating the combination? Because, you can eventually get to mustard gas.
Oh, yeah. I know. You start throwing off vitamin B in there and things get crazy. So, yeah, it's a little bit less regulated than I thought it would be. Let's put it that way. So, which, I was pleasantly surprised that it was a little bit of an easier process. One of the trickier parts was, locating a manufacturer that would do as low of a run as we wanted to, because pills, they're often, a lot of the minimum order quantities are 1 million or 500,000 because they're bottling them, right? So that's not very many bottles. Whereas for us, we're doing single servings. We don't have the capital, and we decided not to fundraise.
So it's 2 capsules per packet?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we only wanted to do 200,000 pills, so 100,000 of each of the types of pills. Yeah. So it took us quite a long time, relatively long time. This whole thing happened very fast, actually, but it took some searching to find a producer out of Utah that was small enough to do a pack of 100,000.
Bender extender made possible
Salt Lake City
by okay, we're not even gonna get onto that topic. That's amazing.
Yeah, podcast in itself. Yeah.
Yeah. Jeez, the Book of Mormon would love this. Okay, so you did all of this has happened within 8 months, from my understanding, right now.
Yeah, pretty much. So we had the idea just right around the 1 year ago mark, and then a couple of months of conception and product testing, things like that. And then we actually, by the time we got the manufacturing run, the packaging, et cetera, and had a real actual product, it was December of 2024. So yes, pretty much exactly 8 months into it.
Jeez, incredible. Okay. And then talk about kind of your co-founders and stuff. Yeah, how did you, you said that they were friends in the group, but you also said that they were, I guess, acquainted with kind of doing nutrition products?
Honestly, that's a loose, the acquainted with nutrition products it was a loose claim by me. They're very into natural health.
Okay.
If I'm being honest, one's an engineer, one's,
and stuff.
We don't have like a chemist on the team by any stretch, but no, it's a group of friends of mine, and they're really, really close friends, and quite entrepreneurial themselves, some of the group, or actually everyone. And so that's kind of how it came about. We're like, man, what a fun thing to do as a group of friends. So one has a background in finance and her CPA. One has a background by trade, he's a power engineer, but he's kind of a creator and a professional snowmobiler. Okay. So he kind of has that outdoor part cornered, which is really neat. He actually got his snowmobile wrapped in the print. Call it the Bedmobile.
That is gorgeous.
Awesome.
Okay.
It is awesome.
There will be links to this site, by the way, so you can see the color coordination and everything.
Yeah, so it's a pretty bright snowmobile ripping around, which is awesome for
options. It's the swimsuits, the matching swimsuits that need to happen. Like, I need a pair of them. Like, they were sweet.
The Bender, I'll get you a pair of Bender board shorts. Absolutely. I can make that happen.
You need Evan. Evan wears, so Evan obviously is where I host a lot of my podcasts out of. Cameo met him. He is the king of short content. So, yeah.
I will get him. I'll get you guys both in a pair. How about that?
Amazing.
That's awesome.
So, what's been kind of the biggest learning curve in launching a physical product versus running a service-based business?
Oh, man. There's been so many. I would say the big one to me has been your actual customer feedback loop and how to shorten that and be able to react to it appropriately. How
do you even find it with a direct-to-consumer product? Is it just through reviews or?
A lot of just being out in the wild. So kind of how I was explaining right before we shot this, the old formula was 2 individually wrapped pills. It was a before and an after. One before you drink, one before or after you're done drinking, before you go to bed. In our minds at the time, we thought, this is brilliant. Like, completely overlooking the fact that by the time you go to bed, you're probably
not thinking
pretty banged up, so you're not going to remember to take the second. Not to mention, a lot of the environments that you're giving these out in is a nightclub, or people are already drunk.
Oh, you can't just hand out single form pills.
And they also...
That's weird.
2 steps, they're like, 2 steps. They just... It really was a bit of a... Put their brains in a blender. To your question, realized very quickly, being out in the wild... And, whether it was activating at golf tournaments or we had some events many events and sponsoring different things, that the 2-step formula really, we had to phase that out pretty much immediately. Especially too, because one thing that barred was getting placement in bars and clubs. Because if I'm a bartender and it takes me a minute and a half to explain a product to someone, I do not want to serve that product, right? Like, whereas the idea behind it is, and where we're kind of starting to partner with bars now is, anytime someone, let's say, orders a round of shots before 2 p.m., automatic upsell. Hey, you guys should get a round of bender extenders with that. But when the upsell is, well, what do I take now? And what's the, and it makes the server's life difficult. Well, that's probably not a product that's going to last in their bar. So like now it's just the one, it's just take now. And you just knock them back and it's a lot more simple.
Is this all over Scottsdale?
It's, yeah, and what a great location to have a hangover pill.
Yeah.
Holy, definitely necessary. Let's put it that way.
The nature of the business pulled you in by the nose, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, 100%. For a while I was thinking, oh man, this is gonna be rough on the lifestyle. But funny enough, actually working, it was almost like the moment I felt that I had to party, I wanted to drink less. So I actually went off the booze all summer too. Because I just thought, especially too when you're, as an entrepreneur, when my personality, especially online, because I do have to do so much of the social media stuff, starts being pulled into this booze hound. Not that I've always kind of liked to party, I'm not going to lie. But it made me kind of want to be like, okay, I want to separate myself a little bit more. So that's been an interesting kind of sidebar of being in that industry, I guess.
What was the benefits, the side effects of not drinking? I have mine that I've talked about on this podcast a lot, but I'm curious what you've experienced.
Oh man, I mean, waking up Monday morning, not groggy and slow and just ready. Like for me, it's the mental part of the hangover. Physically, I don't get hungover because I take bender extender, but
quick plug.
But no, it's the mental clarity. If I find when you're boozing, it's a lot of highs and lows, right? Just chemically. But when you're off the sauce, like life is very predictable and it's very level and that's very enjoyable. And your ability to just apply yourself to what you're working on is much greater. So I love it. I like to talk, so I can still go out, no problem, and have just as much fun. So I really enjoy it. What do you experience when you?
That mental fog, it was amazing how there was like a delayed effect from drinking. So 2 days, 3 days later, you would have like this, you couldn't quite put your finger on it. You don't feel sick and all that kind of stuff. It's just like, you're just not computing.
Totally.
Right?
Yep.
And I found, I didn't even drink a lot to begin with, but like the weekend out of maybe not optimal sleep was definitely playing out in my personal or my work life.
Yeah.
And making work life decisions was just like, whoa, unnecessarily long.
Oh, 100%. And then I start to get in a bit of a doom spiral sometimes when I'm boozing. Your dopamine's all messed up and I'm thinking, oh man, where's the motivation? And am I doing this right? And things that, honest to goodness, I do not think when I'm not drinking. Yeah. So it's the mental piece is massive.
People are starting to talk about it so much more now. Like they've shown stats. I don't have them, so I'm not going to really quote, but Gen Zs and millennials have actually had a dip in alcohol consumption compared to the older gens.
Substantially,
But now there's a lot of substitutes that just don't give the same ripple effect. And so like cognitive abilities, I think is a huge thing that I really appreciate for not drinking. Granted, I'm not saying that I am not getting back to drinking. There is a social element. I love pairing of a good glass of wine with meals.
100%.
I am definitely a culinary guy. I love that stuff. But if I could dampen the grogginess so that I can like be optimal at work for 7 days a week, 5 days a week, I'm going for it.
100%.
Yeah. So what's been harder, managing people or managing your own self-beliefs?
That is a great question. I think that they're totally opposite sides of the coin, and they have such unique difficulties for each. I think the self-belief, entrepreneurship can be very funny because one moment you're thinking, I am the most brilliant person on earth, and then not 30 minutes later you think, this is never going to work. I'm going to be a failure.
It's burning.
Yeah, right.
It's fucking burning.
It's quite the roller coaster. So I would say I've personally been very fortunate in the people I've worked with that they have more, I'm not going to say easy, but I think they've made it as seamless or as... they've eliminated a lot of challenges that I think people typically face when they manage others. Like I've just been extraordinarily lucky with the staff I've had and the co-founders I've had. So for that, I would say managing self-belief. I find if I can be iterating or growing at a rate that's fast enough that I don't have time to think too much and get stagnant, I'm good. But the moment I sit down, and then it can start to creep in, and or you have a major setback, like what I was telling you before we started about kind of our naming situation, things like that can be.
Do you want to share about that after?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I won't talk too crazy about the logistics of it, but yeah, just like those big setbacks, and in the moment you're thinking, oh no, is this the nail in the coffin? Like, is this gonna strip the dream away? And yeah, there's a lot of mental fortitude, and it's challenging. And even to our conversation about the booze, that's another reason that I will cut it out sometimes, because it just exasperates those highs and lows and that doubt sometimes. And so that's just not something, if you can eliminate even a little bit of that, I do.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. So yeah, you were kind of mentioning before the difference between your product placement in the US and in Canada. And there is different regulations from what you kind of shared before. The reason we can't receive this in a store comes down to a naming aspect.
Totally. So I won't bore with the total logistical details, but yeah, Health Canada definitely has a higher standard in terms of naming, product, everything really across the board, and more hoops to jump through. So I'm not going to totally reveal it yet, but we've actually been forced to pivot our Canadian brand and create a slightly different product with a different name, which at first, seems
so daunting.
It's so daunting because I'm thinking, oh my goodness, we're a bootstrapped startup with limited resources. Now we have to manage an entirely second wing of this brand where we're already tapped. Thinking, oh, this is a huge setback. Bender extender, my baby can't necessarily exist in the capacity I wanted to in Canada. Oh, this is brutal. But realized, after working through that problem a little bit, that it's actually, I truly think, a blessing, because the name Bender Extender is very extreme. And there's a large group, I'd say, of brands, organizations that don't want to be associated with that because it's too much of a liability, and it's not a fit with what they stand for. And extending your benders, not exactly everyone's cup of tea.
A family brand?
Yeah, right. Not exactly a family brand. This secondary brand that we're going to have is going to have a much more neutral name, which I think in turn is actually going to open up our collaborations to a wider market than we initially thought that we could address, which I'm excited for. It's kind of going to be a bit more of a B2B wing, and which is neat. So it's really working on. I'm really excited for that Canadian launch. A lot of my Canadian friends have been, they're like, I have a great idea for you. I'm like, what? You should be in liquor stores. I'm like, I know. I want to be. That's the plan. But we're just a little restricted right now. So yeah, I'm really excited for that. And being that all four of us co-founders are Canadian, we all have, we have 4 lifetimes worth of Canadian relationships. And we have a lot of things set up that when we have the green light up here that are going to start happening, just like alcohol collaborations and bar collaborations and things that, we're getting there in the States, but I've only lived there for, a couple of winters and they don't live down there. So it just takes a little longer. So, yeah.
Okay. So has there been a moment in your business journey when you truly felt out of your depth, and how did you work through it?
Honestly, no.
Yeah, you seem very confident and just that sucked, but I moved forward, and you probably didn't dwell on it.
I was going to say, and I don't say no because I feel that I'm this overly competent, apt, experienced person. I'm very aware that I'm not, and I'm so green, it's not even funny. But I don't know. I like I kind of said earlier, I do have the mindset that it's a game and it's fun to play. Mm-hmm. And anytime you're playing a game, there's losses. And I guess maybe I've been fortunate too in the sense where I don't feel I've had anything earth-shattering occur in any of my businesses that legally or anything that set me back in a crazy way. But no, I've just always felt that the worst possible thing that could happen to me when I was doing these things is that I could fail, and that's not that bad, because I'd rather fail doing something that I felt I was pushing towards self-actualization than be doing a really good job of something that wasn't having me on that path. So I think that just kind of, that mindset is, I haven't really gotten to that point, and I think it's just because of that. And I'm not an overthinker. I just
good. You just action it. I like it. So you mentioned Bender Extender, 4 co-founders are Canadian, but you recently made the move to Arizona.
Yes.
What pulled you toward that decision, and how do you balance ambition with lifestyles now?
I love Arizona. I'm actually, as you know, very beginning of my road trip down to Arizona for the winter. I went on a golf trip 3 years ago with a couple of girlfriends, and I had never been down there, didn't know anything about it, but I like to golf. So we went down for the weekend, and I was like, man, this is awesome. Like, it has everything. Everyone's so friendly. Everyone's attractive. It's
50%
clean.
Canadian anyways.
Yeah, it's a bunch of Canadians down here. This is great. And that year was Waste Management and the Super Bowl.
Ooh.
So this group of girls and I were also planning a trip for that. And I realized I was on that trip, and it was right when I started my company. So I now had the flexibility to live somewhere else for do some remote work, and Waste Management and Super Bowl was so inflated that for me to rent our apartment for the month versus the 4 days was marginally more expensive. So I said, okay, I'm just going to do it for the month and test the waters down here and see if I like it. And long story short, absolutely fell in love with it. So that was February, came back in April for a month. Next year decided, okay, I'm going to really try to make my lifestyle down here. So I went down for like a 6-month lease. Mm-hmm. And that's when I actually had to start meeting people, because before I just had visitors and things like that. So I spent the 6 months down there.
Flag Poland?
Was flag Poland?
Yeah. So you go down with just like a Canadian travel visa, and then you have to be back within 6 months.
Oh, yeah, that's Flag Poland for sure.
Flag Poland.
100%. I do have a visa now, though, for the
awesome.
record. Yeah, which was awesome.
For your company ownership, or?
Yeah, I got an E1, it's called, for my marketing company.
You're an extraordinary alien.
That's just, yes. More or less.
Yeah, that's. I think that's what the E1 was, but. Anyway, that's awesome. Well, good for you.
I just fell in love with it. And then, at that point, after the 6 months, then I was 100% sure I loved it. So got a house down there, and now I'm kind of I'm not moving down there because I'm Canadian, but I am spending a substantial amount of the year. A lot of work down there. Bender Extender is based out of Scottsdale, so I'm very excited to be back for that, even component alone. And it's just a fantastic lifestyle. Oh, so yeah.
Yeah.
That's the backstory on Scottsdale.
Amazing. So what do people often misunderstand about a freedom-based life? Is it really as flexible and glamorous as it sounds?
No, it's not. And I get, not, very easy answer there. It's not. And I get, it used to bother me. It doesn't anymore, but I used to get the same comment from everyone. Do you even work? Are you ever working? And of course it's because, and certainly at the time, on social media, the only things I would ever put out there is when I was doing something fun, or I was in an exotic location, or I was doing whatever, right? And of course, what I wasn't showing was me staring at my monitor.
Working from the beach.
14 hours a day. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, So that is, it's not as glamorous. And not to say it's fantastic. Like, it is fantastic. I wouldn't choose any other life, but it's not. And maybe this isn't for everyone, but I guess certainly for me and the workload that's there, I'm not just taking, 11 a.m. tea times and like half work in the week. Like, I am working usually 12 hours a day. Yeah. And I love that though. But on the same token, I can stack up the work and then jet off for a weekend, or I'm about to take a road trip this Thursday, Friday, and not touch a computer, right? So it's awesome, but it's certainly not as, I think people think that you can just go about living your life and there's just a computer near you that you can tap in. Definitely not the case.
No.
As you know.
So you're doing the kind of your flexibility comes from the fact that you could go do 11 o'clock tea time, but what the people don't see is you're probably working till 9, 10 o'clock at night to make up for that.
I'm not taking the tea time, actually.
You're not taking the tea time, okay?
Typically, no. But yes, in the sense, like, with flexibility comes discipline, and if you are going to opt for the flexible options, which I totally have taken those tea times for the record, that you just have the discipline to, I'm going to work from 9 p.m. till late because I chose, that's a decision I made. Whereas I think a lot of people in their minds, it's the flexibility element without the discipline element, right?
Yes.
So
maybe a little bit of sport helped you with that.
Totally, yeah. And I think too, when you get into entrepreneurship, as you know, there's so many non-negotiables. I think people think, oh, do you have a hard time staying motivated when you're the boss or when you're just in your house? And I don't struggle with that because there's just so much to do and there's so many people that need it done, right?
So what is your non-negotiables?
Oh, laundry list, but I guess the main ones would be, I don't want people asking for things twice.
Okay.
If I say something is getting done by a point, it is. Just very much like, I think in business, your word means everything. So adhering to that by any means necessary, and if not, just communicating really clearly if and why that won't be the case. Yeah, that'd be like the high-level synopsis of all the non-negotiables.
Fair.
Yeah.
So, believe it or not, we're close to the end. We got 2 questions for you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So, you've built a bold, unapologetic career that crosses borders and industries. When you look at your journey, how do you define success now?
Ooh, I would say success for me is knowing that I'm doing things that are truly supporting me reaching my potential, and knowing that following that path is going to come with failed endeavors and doing things poorly at times and wrong, but knowing, like, for me, I'm trying not to define success as, was company X successful and was contract X successful or whatever it is, and just knowing that I'm truly doing the things day after day and choosing the paths day after day that are going to help me truly apply myself. And I think that's hard because even there's been times I've gotten to scenarios in the work I'm doing that is good work, but I know I'm doing the wrong things. Like, for example, when I was deep in the weeds at the marketing company, it was essential at first, but the more years I got into it, the more I realized that me actually hiding behind the computer all day is not in line with that path to, or my definition of continuing to be successful. Okay. So having to pull myself out of that. So that's kind of, it's not one measurable thing, but just trying to be very realistic with myself and do a lot of actual thinking and reflecting to think, am I doing these things? Because I stray from that constantly.
Yeah.
Almost always, actually, before you checkpoint and come back in, right? So that's what I would say the long-term success, and then just making sure I build in the time in that cycle to acknowledge success too. Because it's so easy as an entrepreneur to go months and years and never feel like you reached X goal because by the time you reached it, there was another goalpost so far away. So just making sure to be cognizant of that is really healthy for the mind and that whole cycle, I think.
Good for you for acknowledging that now and hopefully embedding that kind of throughout your culture too, because it is so easy to just skip the little wins or what is deemed a little win, but it's those compounding of little wins.
Totally.
I'm really fortunate my team at the solar company that I help manage, they've put into me like, hey, we need to be doing shout outs, basically a newsletter of like, here's our little wins. And like, to me, I will acknowledge, like, I didn't really think of that.
Yeah.
And they're just like, no, this is, if you look back retroactively of the last year, all the little wins have led us to a huge compounding difference. Like, we went nationwide in 3 years. But if we looked a year ago, we weren't even the same company at all. So those little wins, congrats to you for actually acknowledging that now. There's a lot of people, a lot of miserable sods out there that have, they've won, but they never felt that, they never took the time.
Oh, totally. Because it's just, especially if you are someone who's a high achiever or pursuing large goals, you are so wired to be always on to the next thing that, like, the thing that you feel is so insignificant and you didn't acknowledge was at one point the goal you had, right? It's such an interesting, so that's important. And we do the same thing. And credit to one of my staff actually for implementing it on this level. We got the weekly wins in the agenda every Wednesday. Just throw in the little ones, right? Because it is, those are what ultimately lead to a successful week, successful month, successful year, right? So, yeah.
Is that your kind of like team town hall is on Wednesdays? Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
We actually meet every day, or we have a little touch point because we are remote. So it just helps to keep things aligned, but that's the big one.
Cool.
Wednesday. Yeah.
If you could go back to that 18-year-old version of yourself walking onto the U of A campus for the first time, what would you want her to know?
I would just want her to know that the things that she's in the right place, which I think I did know, and that the things that I was about to have a very different journey than I set out to have or what I anticipated having, but that would make my experience there no less positive or impactful or successful than it was, intended to be, right? Because like we talked about at the beginning, those injuries and losing your sport when you're that young were really, really hard. And there was days where I thought, oh my goodness, like, did I make the right choice? What am I going to do? And how is this going to become positive? But like I said, and I truly mean this, I think everything that happened to me from a basketball perspective pointed me in the direction and rapidly accelerated where I am today. And I'm really grateful for that. So that's what I would just tell her is keep your head up. Your second year is going to be rough. Go to class.
Go to class. So that gets us to the end of the podcast. Where can people show their support?
Well, if you're interested in trying Bender Extender, you can order it online at benderextender.com. And then, of course, if you're not interested in trying the product, support on social is always huge. So at the Bender Extender, Instagram is kind of our big platform that we're primarily on. Trying to hire someone, a little ASU student actually, to do our TikTok because I'm already aged out of that particular platform. So don't follow us on there yet. And then, if you're interested in the marketing stuff, bestmarketingco.ca is where most of that information can be held. But those would be the main spots. Thanks for asking.
We'll make sure to have that on our show notes. So for all that made it all the way to the end, thank you so much. We know that your support is the reason why we're here. If you can help get it out there, share it with your friends, especially if you feel that this relates to them. We'd really appreciate it. Let's get after it.
Let's get after it.